Welcome to the Bodacious Women in Cannabis podcast, the show where the bold and brilliant women cannabis business leaders share their journey and their expertise. Here's your host, Susan Burns.
Hi, this is your podcast host, Susan Burns. I am also a lawyer in the cannabis industry, and nothing delights me more than showcasing bodacious women in business. Today's certainly no exception. We are talking with Shonda Broom, Coram Deo Holistic Center founder and operator, and this is going to be an amazing conversation. Welcome, Shonda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Susan. I'm happy to be here.
Such a pleasure. So, you have a unique center and a unique background, and I want to hear all about it. And I know our listeners do as well. Did I say the name of your business properly?
Yes, so it's Coram Deo. It's actually Latin, and what it means is to be in the presence of the Most High God. So my center is based around spirituality, love, and understanding of the Creator. So that's why I focus like a lot on holistic health. Of course, I do other things, but that is mainly like the focus with the holistic center is holistic wellness, educating the community on health and wellness. I try to participate in events whenever I can, just to get the message out there and to show people there are other alternatives. I am a nurse, so I'm not against modern medicine. I do believe they can coexist, but I do also feel that there are some things don't require a pill. Sometimes it just requires us walking out in the grass, sitting under a tree, reflecting on life, or even practicing self care. So that's how I got to. That's part of my story as to how I got there.
That is part of your story I know a little bit about. So, this is a bodacious women in cannabis. So let's talk about, do you incorporate cannabis in your center, or is that what it's all about, or how?
So yeah, so my story, I guess we're gonna have to jump into my story, which led me to starting a holistic center was it was definitely cannabis. So I'm a registered nurse. I had a home care agency for 10 years. And in 2016 I had to close abruptly. The place was like infested with mold. It was really terrible. And so it led me to be forced to close. But that's what I did about a year after I graduated from college. So, it was like a real hit because like that's kind of all I really knew in my adult life as far as starting a career. I did other different aspects of nursing, med surge, home health, agency, all these different things. But my business and growing and grooming my business was, it just was the foundation for everything really. Throughout my 20s, early 30s. So when I closed, I became very depressed and lost. And so I used cannabis to help manage my depression. While I was using it to manage my depression along this journey, I also found how it can also help manage my blood pressure. But this is how I initially started. So I wasn't somebody young who used cannabis. I hear stories. It's like, oh, I've been using cannabis since I was 12. And I'm like, no, I was a late bloomer. That wasn't me. I didn't start really, until this happened. And I was looking for ways to manage my depression. I didn't want to take like prescription medications. Just like I say, being a nurse, doing research, it's a good and a bad to it. And so I was like, well, I'm just try cannabis. And so for months, I couldn't get a job as a nurse. And then I would go back to my cannabis to kind of help me cope. And I eventually did get a job in November. So it took a while, a few months later, but I failed my pre-employment screening for that job. Now, when I tell this story now, I always like to preface it with saying I wasn't as knowledgeable about cannabis back then as I am now. This was 2016. Cannabis was nowhere in my radar back then. But I failed that screening. A month later, I got another job. I passed that screening. So I was working doing home health, which I just absolutely love. Always loved home health because I like one-on-one care. And then the nursing board sent me a letter, said that I was under investigation for failing a pre-employment screening. I was terrified. Didn't understand my law back then. I was afraid. I didn't really know what to do. And so I had to choose between voluntarily surrendering and suspension. My suspension involved going to rehab. It was several thousands of dollars back then. It's much more now.
Rehab for failing it.
Rehab, a pre-employment screen. They wanted me to do rehab.
Holy
Yes. Oh,
smokes.
that's just the tip of it. I had to go to like narcotic.
Unintended there.
Right,
Holy smokes.
right. The no pun, right? But I also would have to go to like Narcotics Anonymous. The
What?
closest meeting was like an hour away from my house. Yes. I had to be shadowed by a nurse. I couldn't give medicines alone, and I had to give up home health, which again is what I loved doing. Like I said, it helped me manage my depression. At this time, I did find a job, but I still was dealing with that depression because, again, my business was my life. So I'm still adjusting to that. And so I thought, well, if I say that they're right, that means it's saying that, or me saying that I'm wrong means it's that saying that they're right.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think they were right because, all the propaganda, the reefer madness that we have been taught over the years, you know, compared to my experience with cannabis, it was just totally different. And I couldn't imagine giving up something that was helping me manage such a dark period in my life. So I chose to voluntarily surrender. And it was a very hard decision. The depression actually got worse because then I felt even more lost. But that started the journey to wanting to heal myself back to wholeness, to wanting to understand different holistic modalities that existed out there. I mean, I wasn't even meditating prior to all of this, and meditation became such an important part of my day. Um, that, as I was using these different tools to help support myself, I'm like, well, what about those besides me? That may be dealing with these feelings and these emotions, and maybe they feel modern medicine isn't the answer, but they're searching for some type of answer. And so that's what led me to start the Holistic Center.
So out of that, you just decided, oh, I'll start a center.
I'll start a center. I said, well,
Okay, that's audacious.
yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't a center in my mind. Like I had all these different ideas of all these different things I wanted to do. And I thought, well, it would be great. Like if I had this one central location to actually be able to allow people to come in and experience these different things and learn these different ways of healing and even a different way of living, and most importantly getting back to self-care, because I do realize that a lot of our struggles could have to do with the lack of self-care and self-love, not stopping to give yourself time to process your feelings, who you are, who you're trying to become. We get so caught up into the day-to-day of life that we don't give ourselves sometimes not even 10 minutes to just breathe you know and I've had sessions I've done with people, and I say sometimes you just got to give yourself a chance to breathe so that you can think and gain clarity. I say, how often do you give yourself 10 minutes just to do this? And it's like, never. I don't have time. And you have to make time for yourself. If you don't make time for anything else, or if you allow yourself to make time for everything else, the least you can do for yourself is give yourself 10 minutes out of a day. And so that's where it started. It started with just, holding little meditation sessions in my community, doing one-on-ones, doing, these small group events. And it's like, okay, I want to start a holistic center. I think this is my lane, but keep it cannabis first, and that was a challenge in itself as well. Nurses don't talk about cannabis. We talk about cannabis. We don't talk about cannabis. Back then, that was very shunned upon. As a nurse, it's our job to tell people to basically just say no to drugs. But cannabis just isn't a drug; it's a medicine. So I had to even learn how to be that type of nurse, along with incorporating that into holistic
And
wellness.
and so describe for us, Shonda, if you would, what how does your center work? I know you offer meditation, but what do you do?
So I used to have a physical location prior to COVID. COVID changed things, of course. So I'm virtual. So what I do is I host like events within the community. I also participate in community events, Now, as far as the holistic center, that's where I focus like a lot on those holistic wellness modalities. But along with that, I also began to incorporate cannabis through my consultant agency, which is D4N Consulting.
What is it called?
D4N Consultant. So I call myself the 420 nurse. So that's what D4N stands for. People always like, well, what is D4N? The 420 nurse.
You're the 420 nurse, hashtag 420 nurse. I love it.
Yeah. So with that, with incorporating my cannabis knowledge into the holistic center, that opened me up to do even more events focused around cannabis. The first cannabis event was actually on 420 last year. I brought in like nurses, doctors, and it was the event for the community to come learn. Because I find that with cannabis, the reason why a lot of people are, against it or they don't want, it to be as popular as it is, they don't want legalization is because of lack of education. All it takes is one experience for somebody to realize, well, this plant isn't bad, or for somebody they know to go through chronic pain, because I've seen many patients deal with chronic pain and watch cannabis change their lives, or somebody deal with cannabis, with cancer, I'm sorry, and they begin to heal, or they at least have relief from the side effects of chemo and radiation. And so, I am in the South, so that has been challenging. I won't even lie. But again, when I find that I do educate people, because I've had people who are like, come to me totally against it. Why are you talking about this? Why are you doing this? You're a nurse. You're not supposed to be. And then just from a simple conversation or me sharing, testimonials that from actual people I've talked to, I've seen hearts and minds change. And I'm one person. So I think that if we get to a place where we see education more, especially in resistant areas, the South, rural communities, I think that we will see more support. We maybe see legalization quicker because, again, if people are educated and informed, then they know how they should vote. They know who they should support. They should know who have their best interests in heart. That would encourage people to understand their law and keep up with what's going on if they are educated. So I talk a lot about that as well. So like D4 in consulting, that side of that business, I actually focus on like workplace protections because of what happened to me. um, I focus on workplace protections on from the aspect of the employer and the employee. So with the employer, what I do is I help them revamp their policies. So with me having my business for 10 years, I wrote policies throughout the whole 10 years. Every time something changed with the state, every time anything changed, I'm revamping policies, writing policy books. So I have a lot of experience with that. And it's like, well, how do I incorporate that with cannabis? Incorporate it through workplace protections. Another thing I do is like employee awareness training for employers. Um, a lot of employers, they don't keep up with cannabis law. And you can't say, well, I didn't know. And this is why I try to make employers understand. It's like you can't say you didn't know if the law is the law. So it's important to make your employees aware of your expectations while being in alignment with the law as well. But also help people within the community, understand the importance of being a medical patient, if they're living in a state where there is a medicinal program, and how to get started with actually getting on the program, because there are benefits even in states that do have a recreational program. There's still benefits to being a medicinal patient, and I try to get people to understand that as well.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what has been your biggest challenge so far, would you say, and how did you turn that into a positive?
My biggest challenge was getting out of my own way.
Hmm,
Yeah,
good one.
yeah. My biggest challenge was that because of fear, just not being accepted. Like I said, when my situation first happened, it was like worrying about my peers. What will the nurses think? Did she really do this? This is
We're so trained to do what does everybody think, What's
right.
everybody going to think?
Exactly. What are people going to say?
Yeah, and who cares?
Who right at this point?
Yeah,
That's how I feel. Who
yeah.
cares? Because I got to get the message out. But in the beginning, um, I was afraid. I would not talk about this. I would have days where, I would contemplate back and forth with myself, like, when am I going to tell this story? And I would say I would never speak this out loud from shame. And so I had to forgive myself, meaning not forgive myself because I chose cannabis to medicate for my depression, but forgive myself for thinking I did something wrong by choosing my health first. Because, I did I was angry at myself for a while. Like, I would go back and forth, like, did I do the right thing? Maybe I shouldn't have done this, or maybe I should have just did what they said. And I had to really get to a place that I stuck by what I believed in. I stood on my word and know that I made the right decision in what I did. And when I did decide to get out my own way, and when I did decide to forgive myself, it's like the world opened up. So many experiences within the cannabis industry I began to have. I began to meet so many amazing people that, not only encouraged me, but also helped me elevate to places that I would have never imagined. I never seen where I am today when I went to nursing school. Like, I would have never in a million years imagined this will be my path right now. But being on this path, I know this is where I'm meant to be. I say I look back on things. It's like, would I ever do this again? And I say, at now, I don't regret my decision because it wouldn't have made me the person I am today. I'm very passionate about the industry. I'm passionate about the change and the growth that we see. Most importantly, I am very passionate about workplace protections and maintaining the rights of medical patients to be able to keep their jobs and still choose cannabis as medicine.
Choose their health. Yes. Yes.
That's right. Choose your health first. We only got one of us.
But thank you for that, Shonda, because I think of all the women, all the beautiful, bodacious women I've talked with, I think you're the first that's talked about the, you know, the whole self and getting in our own way. And I think that's such an important thing, and all the shame that's heaped on or has been, and they're like cannabis moms and things like, it's employment, it's whatever, and that, what was I thinking? What's the matter with me? What was I doing? And that whole journey that we seem to go through. And it always, it's always sounds a little trite when you say, well, if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be where I was today. But it's so true. And also that um, really relate to what you were saying. If you would have, this is not what I thought my life would be like. I mean, so many times in my life, I've thought, if you would have told me even 5 years ago I would be doing this, and I would have said no, no, I won't. No, there's no way. And then I'm doing it,
And
and
loving
loving
it.
it. You know,
Right.
it's like, and it feels so good. So it's interesting to me on the journey if we just pay attention, and I think it's so important. You're even taking 10 minutes a day to just be still and reflect on what those guideposts are telling us, even if it's a door slammed in the
Right.
face, or someone stomping on your foot, metaphorically, like, or pushing you
Right.
down or whatever it is. Like, how do you, where does that lead you? So kudos to you for staying on that journey. And it sounds like you're in a good spot and you're in a joyful path. And I'm just wondering if there's any surprises for you that you think, oh man, aside from the fact that you never saw yourself doing this, in a million years, I never would have expected this joyful moment to happen, or that this would be so awesome. Or do you have any things like that?
All the time. all the time, like every experience, you know, so it's like a saying that if you go into something with no expectations, and you first of all, you won't get disappointed, but when you expect nothing, you get everything. And so I've always walked in this industry without expecting, because you don't know. Like I said, I'm in the South. um I didn't know how it was be received. I still think I don't know how I'm really received. I'm just putting myself out there. But every experience that I've had throughout this journey has been like, oh my God, I didn't expect this to happen. Like, oh my God, is this really happening? Like, I've been in experiences in it. I really feel like I'm in a dream world. I've said this out loud, even to people who have been. I'm like, this must be a dream. I don't think this is. Is
They're
this
like, she's
real? Like I'm
high.
pinching myself. Like, oh, is she high? Like, do I have to pinch myself? Because it's just been an amazing journey. It really, really is. It has been. It is, and I know it just will continue to be. And I think that that just comes from not expecting anything because I really don't. I just walk in it, I get my message out. Um, I continue to walk in my purpose because I think that, what I did go through, it did lead me to my purpose. And even though I didn't see that back then, I seen the sadness and the darkness and the trauma of it. Clearly it was aligning me for my purpose. So I just walk in my purpose. And as I walk in my purpose, it's like these experiences, they just come, and it's every moment is a surprise because like I said, I don't expect it, but I thoroughly enjoy it every step of the way because I just love being in the industry in some form.
Yeah. So, do you have any pointers or advice or recommendations for women in cannabis that maybe either just starting their journey or, maybe they've been doing it for a while and are kind of losing their way? Like you say it with such ease that, I follow my purpose, but a lot of people really struggle with, am I doing the right thing? Is this my purpose? What is my, like, so I think we can get hung up on that, and until you feel that sense of fulfillment and you have the aha of, yes, I've got it, that there's that struggle. And so how do you sort of, quote unquote, keep the faith and put one foot in front of the other and stay on the
It's
path?
not easy. It's not, it in the beginning I didn't think I was walking in my purpose. I was clueless as to what I was doing. I just thought it kind of felt right, even though I was still like, mad at myself. So, walking in your purpose, it is a journey. It is not a destination. It's not like, oh, this is my purpose. Okay, I'm finally here. Because I think that your purpose can consist of many things. Um, and I think that, you shouldn't get so, it's good when you find one of your purposes, right? But you shouldn't get so focused on, well, I don't think I'm walking in my purpose. So maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. I think it's just important to live. I think it's important to, if this is what you're feeling drawn to do, or if this is what sets your soul on fire, like I said, you stay strong in it. You trust the vision that you initially had in the beginning. Because for you to get on this path in the first place, a light bulb had to go off, an idea had to flash to say, maybe I should try cannabis. And when you thought that thought, you probably felt kind of good about it. But I do know we could have these moments where it's like, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I feel like I'm wasting my time. This isn't working. When will it happen? And you just have to trust the process. I'm still a work in progress with all of this out. I'm still figuring out, I'm still learning something new about cannabis all the time. So I say I'm walking in my purpose, not necessarily that I walked in it and I'm standing in it and I'm there. It's a continuous journey. So, I think that it's important for ladies to just always believe in yourself. You have to believe in you when no one else believes in you. You have to continue to see that vision when no one else sees that vision because it's not, maybe in the beginning, it's not always for others to see. It's not for others to see until the point of completion. But it's always there for you to see as you get to that point of completion. And so you just have to keep working towards your goals. You have to continue to stay focused. And yeah, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have sad days. You're going to have frustrating days, crying days. But you're going to get to a point that those good days will outweigh those bad days. And when you have those bad days, you reflect on the strength that got you through those days in the first place. And you take that strength and you keep going and you keep going. Because again, like I feel like if it comes to your mind, because like you said, this was nowhere on our radar to do cannabis, right? So cannabis comes on your radar and you feel a tinge of passion behind it, it is meant for you to walk in it because it doesn't come to everybody. Everybody doesn't have that passion and that dedication or even willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to be in this industry. It's not easy all the time. It can be very hard, challenging to maneuver your way through this industry and understand, the laws and just the business practices, and even the fact that each state is doing their own thing, really, so it's not easy. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous how different things are. Even to get in medical recommendations. I mean, I'm like, I can't believe some states do that. In Louisiana, it's like a 10-minute process over the phone. But, every state is different. So it can be very challenging, not even just, working within your state in cannabis, but trying to work across, the country, really, because you have to understand so much in this industry to I would say even to be successful, even to function, really, because like I said, Louisiana, Texas, right next door to each other, two totally different things going on when it comes to cannabis. So don't give up. Yeah, just don't give up on yourself. I would say
Believe in
believe,
yourself and
yes,
never, ever, ever
yes,
give up.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Great advice. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I think maybe you also belong in the pulpit on
you
Sundays.
well, thank you.
That was a great impassioned sermon. I love
Thank
it.
you.
So I think you're beautifully bodacious. What is it that you think makes you bodacious? What's your unique brand of
So I
bodaciousness?
think what makes me bodacious is, I'm gonna say, my compassion, and I mean that comes from nursing. I think that the world today, we do lack a lot of compassion, and sometimes it is hard to be compassionate in a challenging world. But I think that how I say, how I connect with people and how people feel most comfortable connected with me is the compassion that I do give to everyone that I meet, really. Respecting people for who they are, understanding that everybody will have a bad day. So we should always treat people with kindness and understanding when we can. And so I lead with compassion with everything that I do. And I feel that's what makes me bodacious.
Aw, that's great. I love it. Thank you so much, Shonda. Where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's the 420 nurse, DA 420, the number 420 nurse. I'm also on TikTok. Look, I'm still trying to learn TikTok, all these social media platforms. So
Oh, you're braver than I am.
so I'm not that active on TikTok, but I am there. And I'm also Shonda Broom on Facebook. And if you just want to know about me and all the different things I do, I have a link tree. So it's linktree / the 420 nurse. You actually can go sign my petition there. I have a petition on change.org that I started back in November. And this was to end workplace urine testing for patients, because it really does affect a lot of people. And, awareness isn't brought to a lot of people's attention until it actually happens to them. And so that's part of my plight as well, is to, help get these laws changed in more than one state, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's good for you. Very much needed. I agree.
Thank you.
So, okay, everybody, it is Shonda, Shonda Broom, just like it sounds, Broom. Shonda Broom, the 420 nurse, changing the world one day at a time, one people at a time, one signature at a time. Thank you so much, Shonda.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
An absolute pleasure.